Welcome to Video Game Book Club, the show where we pick, we play, and we discuss a video game each and every month. I'm your host, JP, and with me, always, Ben Tizzle Toops.
What is up? Video Game Book Club, we are back.
We're so back.
We are so back. Back like we never left. Back again. All the backs. How's it going, JP?
Man, it's going good. I had a little vacation this month. I was able to get some game time in, which was really nice.
Yes.
How are you, man?
I'm pretty good. I'm doing good. I'm pumped up. I feel like our little community is growing here a little bit. We got, the official Video Game Book Club Discord,
Oh yeah.
where you can join in, interact with us, talk about the games we're playing, submit questions, and all that kind of stuff. So, if you're interested in that, definitely hit it up. And, I think both JP and I just want to say shout out to everyone with the support so far. If you're liking the podcast, if you like what we're doing, if you want to join the club, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that like button. It definitely helps us out, and we definitely appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. The last two videos have been our record for most views and likes for Video Game Book Club. So it just makes us really happy. It makes us want to keep going, of course. And thank you so much. We're like a
Yes,
little family forming right here. And I'm excited that we're
that's
both
right.
your dads. We're just two puppies just hanging out. So so Ben, what are we talking about today?
All right. So last month, as you guys know, we played Nine Souls. And Nine Souls was, if you watch that episode, if you haven't, go back and watch it because it's a banger. But Nine Souls, crazy game, gritty, hard, Souls like, crazy hard combat, intense
Oof.
art style, super intense. So we figure, you know what? This month, we're going to chill out a little bit, play maybe a little bit of a shorter game
Hmm.
for reasons that, we'll get into at the end of the episode, maybe. But we're going to play a little bit shorter of a game, maybe something a little more relaxed, chill out with something. So this month, we're playing the Plucky Squire. So the Plucky Squire was recently published by Devolver Digital, I think, which
Hmm.
is, a huge publisher in the space, really well known by the community, has put out some really interesting stuff in the past. And this is the most recent thing. So yeah, this month we're talking about the Plucky Squire.
This is the debut game from the developers too. Uh, Digital, Devolver Digital being the publishers, but I think that the developers had one of the most interesting and creative ideas in a video game, and they executed it. I'm gonna say well. They executed it well.
Right.
I don't think it was the best execution, but let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit with the Plucky Squire. So basically, this game is a mishmash of like 100 different games put into one. But
Yeah.
let's really get into the what this game is. So Ben, why don't you describe what the Plucky Squire is for me?
So the Plucky Squire is, if I had to compare it to something, it would be very like old school Zelda titles, right? Like I
Hmm.
think the main gameplay is similar to that, but from that sort of baseline of gameplay, they really try to add, a lot of different types of gameplay mechanics, a lot of, nods to some different games, and different, styles and stuff like that.
If
But that's kind of the
any
base. Is this, yeah,
if any new game was like Zelda 1, we would be snoozing. Are you kidding me? It just
yeah,
so it's good that they're adding a lot of different,
yeah.
they that's what they wanted to do, just make it fresh and fun, and every 30 minutes something different happens. But at the same
Right.
time, it might or might not have made it a little bit shallow in my
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely get into that. We'll
opinion.
definitely get into
Yeah.
that. But so the main game is kind of that sort of style with the combat, mostly 2D, 3D as well, as we know. We'll talk about that. But mostly kind of a 2D top-down style where you're moving around, swinging your sword to, defeat little enemies and progressing through different stages. But the main kind of setting for the game and the protagonist is this guy called Jot, and he's the Plucky Squire. So he's kind of like a young knight, basically. And Jot is kind of the main character of a book, and so the game kind of takes place within a book, and it's kind of fun to think about like what that actually means. And so there's literally a book with like a 2D pages in this like 3D environment. So you can kind of always see the 3D environment kind of on the outskirts of the book. And it makes for a really interesting kind of art style that kind of comes to affect the game more and more throughout the game. But that's kind of the setup. You basically are the main character in a book. And so the game kind of expands from there. But that's like the very basic
And
setup.
John is like the coolest character in this book. He is the Plucky Squire. He's gone on like 1,000 adventures, and then he writes his adventures in this series of books that is like canonical inside the comic book. So it's like books within books.
Right.
And everyone just adores this little dude. And my man is silent. He's just, your typical Zelda silent guy who just goes around and is able to defeat the bad guy every single time.
Of course.
And that's it. I really like the environment. Just mentioning is inside a bedroom, and the
Mm-hmm.
bedroom, it belongs to Sam, who is like, this kid, I guess, who we never meet,
Right.
but
Yeah.
he does some interesting choices in his bedroom throughout the game, which makes him some really fun adventuring for Jot for sure. But to start
Yes.
off, the game basically introduces this really quickly with one of the coolest and best narrator voices that I think a video game has ever got. And then you go through like the tutorial. So why don't you walk us through like the first like maybe 10 minutes of the game?
Yeah, so basically you start out as Jot, and you go over, you just kind of wake up in your house or whatever in this land, and there's just this, bumping music
Hmm.
coming from somewhere nearby. And so you go over, obviously, to kind of check out what's going on. And you find the wizard Moonbeard, who is definitely one of the funnier characters in the game, I think. He's just this, Tolkien-esque wizard, but with the spin of just like kind of I don't know. He just like chills
Yeah.
out, eats like some potato chips. He's a gamer, he's bumping music. He's a DJ. And Moonbeard basically says, "What's up? I need some wax for my wax, my vinyls. So can you go get the wax for me from this bee, like on this mountaintop?" And you're like, "Sure, why not? Like let's go get the wax." So that's kind of, the start of the tutorial. So you go, you adventure up through kind of a few little combat stages. Like we said, the combat, like the main combat, is pretty basic. You're just kind of rolling around, swinging your sword a couple times to kill the enemies. But so you go through, a couple stages like that, and eventually you come on the bee who you're supposed to be getting the wax from. But there's a badger kind of stealing all the honey, basically. So Jot's, job is to get rid of the badger so we can get the wax and bring it back to Moonbeard. And I feel like that's kind of the first point where the developers introduce this sort of thing that's going to, keep occurring throughout the game, where there's all sorts of different, the main combat, like we said, is pretty generic and basic, but they try to tie in lots of different gameplay mechanics, styles, into these, like, I guess, boss encounters, you would call them. So for this first one, Jot basically takes on the role of a fighter in like Punch Out, and you have to, throw, raise your dukes and throw punches with this giant badger. And it's pretty funny. What did you think of that,
I,
whole
I
encounter?
thought it was great. Yeah, that I think I wrote some notes saying that like the beginning of the game was just so cute. Like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
tutorial beginning level was great, and you get to the first boss, and it was so fun. I didn't expect it to have this mechanic that it's Punch Out. I thought I got my ass kicked. Kind of, the badger was really hitting me left and right. I don't know why I couldn't really get the timing right to dodge. Um, but yeah, I thought the whole jabbing, punching, and hooking was so fun, and the badger has some really fun animations when you hit him. So overall, super cute. You know, the battle lasts like a minute, and then the bee also. Every character in this game has such great personalities. The bee is
Yeah,
excited that you know
yeah,
hit the badger, gives you the honey or the wax, and then you bring it back to Moonbeard.
yeah. I would say you get that feeling like from these first few minutes.
Hmm.
That it really encapsulates like the vibe of the game, I would say, because the character, like each character has a personality that really comes through like in the writing. It's not voiced or anything like that, except for the
Yeah,
narrator, who, like you said, does an awesome job. But the writing of the characters, I thought, was really good. Like there were moments that made me laugh, definitely.
100%.
Like Benny B, the Benny B character was what, like 30 seconds of screen time, and he had like some funny lines that made me laugh. So yeah, I thought, a pretty strong start, like not wowed by the combat or anything like that, but from like an experience perspective, I thought a pretty strong start.
Yeah, also in the beginning stages, you find a couple of scrolls, and
Mhm.
throughout the game, these scrolls are like the secret items that you completionists would want to go for. And these scrolls basically have like some sort of art that the developers drew maybe in the beginning stages of developing this game, or like ideas of the game or enemies or landscapes and stuff. And you just get little tidbits about how the game kind of got made through these art scrolls. And I was like, okay, secrets, fun boss fights, a really fun narrator, and Moonbeard is, you know, my guy for sure. I was like, this is gonna like lead us to like one of the best games that we're gonna play this year. um you go back to Moonbeard. You go back to Moonbeard, and he tells you um uh, that you have to
Well, I think
go.
you don't go to
Do you
Moonbeard yet.
not
When
go to
you're
Moonbeard?
on No, when you're on like the hilltop getting the beeswax in the background, you see Humgrump's tower.
Oh, right.
And there's like all sorts of lightning and like spells being cast and something going on. And so that's when Moonbeard kind of calls you up and says like you got to go check this out
Sure.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, you.
So that's what happens. You see something going on in this like evil wizard tower in the background, and Jot has to go check it out. On your way to going investigate the tower, you get introduced to the character Violet, who is one of like the kind of, I don't know, you would call maybe party members or
Yeah.
like sidekicks. Like I'm not really sure. There's not like a defined role, but just like party member, I guess. But so Violet is like a young, wizard in training, pretty much, or witch, I guess you would say. But she is like childhood friends with Jot. They're super cool. So she joins the party as you go to the tower. And then on the way to the tower, you get in a bit of trouble. You're hanging off this like cliff face, and you get rescued by another character named Thrash, who's this kind of rock and roll mountain troll. He was also childhood friends with Jot and Violet. They have like this crew. I think they call themselves like the Mojam
Mojam.
Squad.
Yeah.
It's good vibes. Thrash, give me your like initial impression of like the two characters joining the
Yeah,
party.
it's
What did you
just
think of them?
they're just very cute, you know, very fun. They have strong personalities, as we said, and they take every time that they can, they will throw a little quip here and there just to make it more fun as you go exploring. They also love Jot so much, and all three of them, yeah, they just look like three best friends. I don't have like any particular. They just, to me, they seem like very fun side characters
Yeah,
that Jot will
they're kind of
eventually.
just there. They're kind of just there for the vibes,
Yeah,
right?
they're
Like
just to accompany.
there's points where you kind of take over their controlling them and like special encounters that we'll talk about. But for the most part, like you said, they're just kind of
They
there
also
for the
know,
quips, for the
yeah,
vibes.
they know that Jot is the main guy. Every time there's like
Yeah,
some sort of encounter or something, they're like, all right, we're gonna chill over here, and then you go defeat those goblins, and you let me know when you're done, and then we're gonna come and join you. So yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely really cool vibes. At this point too, you get the first like perspective change of the game. You have to go down the cliff in like a kind of like a 2D platforming way. At
mm,
this point, you're playing like a top-down view, kind of like Zelda, like right as we were saying earlier, like
yeah,
Zelda One. So that was really cool too. I didn't know. Again, everything kind of took me by surprise. I didn't know too much about the game going in, and it was really fun that the art is so effective that they can just switch into different perspectives of either 2D or 3D, and it just works. They nailed that so well. So you
yeah,
go
totally.
through this opening stage again with now your buddies, and you have like your full crew, and
Hmm.
you eventually make it to Humgrum's tower.
Right. And we should mention along the way, as you're making your way to the tower, you get introduced to one of the main like puzzling mechanics in the game, which is the words on the page,
Yeah.
right? Because this is a book in the space of like the game, right? So there's words that like physically appear in the book, and you can occasionally like swap out words between different portions of text. So, there might be something in the book that says like, here is a giant, block of stone. But if there's something else like if you find somewhere else in the book that has the word cheese, you might be able to swap out the word stone for the word cheese, and in the game the block goes from being stone to cheese. And that's like not like a super specific example. That's There's like kind of some of those goofy interactions that you can do that don't really like affect the actual puzzles at all. But just an example of how you can like manipulate the environment around you by swapping out some parts of the text with like different words. And I thought that was a pretty unique feature. Like I don't think I've seen anything like that before. And it made for some pretty interesting puzzles, I thought.
Yeah, if you've played Baba Is You, this is kind of like Baba Is You light. So it has the same kind
Okay.
of mechanics from that game. And it made, like Ben said, it makes from some really funny interactions that just, yeah, just make you smile. Like there's a tiny frog. It says here lies a tiny frog. But you can take tiny out and you can put giant, and then the frog becomes giant, and you get like a little trophy on PlayStation for, unlocking
Yeah.
that achievement or something. But as Ben said, this is the main mechanic. The Plucky Squire Jot, he is a writer, and so he is able to manipulate these like writings in the book. Uh, Now you can't change every single word. The game tells you, kind of like leads you to the words that you can actually move around, and not all of them
Right.
fit together either. It has to kind of make grammatical sense. Um,
Hmm.
so it's tailored, and that's why it's like Baba is you light, just because not every combination of words makes sense, but the ones that do
Gotcha.
work are great. They're fun. They definitely. I thought that the game from this point was going to be a lot of that throughout, and it
Yeah.
is definitely. But yeah, I was super excited to just, again, this maybe the first hour of the game was really fun.
Yeah, totally. So, like you said, after that, you go through a couple areas of the world and you get to this tower that you saw all this stuff going on at, right? And so here, you make your way up to the top of the tower and you encounter the evil wizard named Humgrump. And so Humgrump is like just this, where Moonbeard is like the chill, cool wizard. Humgrump is just like very short and like angry. And it's clear from the dialogue in the game and from some kind of the setup that Humgrump is supposed to be and is the bad guy that Jot, conquers basically. Jot defeats Humgrump every time in the book. That's how the book goes. The book's been written and read, 1,000 times. That's how this story is supposed to go. But Humgrump, in, some ancient tome of text, figures out a way to change that. So what he does is he harnesses some type of magic that basically kicks Jot out of the book. And so this is the first time that Jot is expelled into like the actual 3D world that the game exists in. So he gets kind of shot out of the 2D text of the page into this like 3D environment. And that's like a big, you mentioned the kind of perspective change that happens with, the landscape versus portrait of the book and some cool stuff they do with that. But that is like kind of the coolest and I think the main like perspective shifting thing that happens. And I think it's like it's kind of impressive to do because it everything the 3D model of Jot is like very well done. Like what I'm trying to say is like the 3D world looks as good as the 2D world, and
Yeah,
I thought that was really impressive.
it feels as good as well. The way that Jot kind of like slashes around with his sword in the 3D world is feels just the same as when he does it in the 2D world. And at this point, Jot is mind blown. He doesn't know that he is a comic book character until this moment.
Right.
Moonbeard apparently has known this whole time and kind of breaks it to Jot. But Jot leaves his sword in the comic book, and now he's kind of out in the open. There's these like beetles walking around that wants to harm him, and you get introduced to kind of like the book god of characters, and that's
Yeah.
the bookworm. And do you remember the
Yeah.
bookworm's name? I can't remember
No, I
now,
don't think
but
I do.
basically
Yeah, I just
this
remember
this
the bookworm.
character is around in the whole game, and she just knows every single thing that is going on at all
Yeah,
times. It's kind of great.
the bookworm is some sort of like outer eldritch god, I think, in this
Yeah, it
universe. Like it just is like
reminds me of like Clippy, Clippy on like those like old Windows softwares.
except if Clippy was like all powerful.
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true. Um, but basically, the bookworm kind of guides Jot in this 3D world as you navigate it for the first time, and
Yeah,
how to try to get back into the book.
right. Because obviously Humgrump is like up to something in the book, something nefarious, and you want to be, saving your friends, right? They're still in there, so Jot wants to get back in the book. But yeah, so that's kind of first basic sense of like 3D platforming, is basically Jot just trying to find a way to get back in the book, and eventually you find a little portal that he can access where he can kind of jump back in.
He also finds
And
that
then
in
yeah,
the in Sam's room, there's different portals to maybe he has like some doodles and stuff that he's made, and so you can go from 3D to 2D in that 3D world, but not the book, if that makes
right,
sense. And so you can travel around.
right,
It's kind of like the Legend of Zelda. A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS, where Zelda's walking around, not Zelda, Link is walking around, and you can kind of go onto a wall and you become like 2D in that wall and you can go around corners and stuff. So Jot can do the same thing, and that it introduces that. Eventually, as Ben says, you get back into the comic book and now you have this new ability that you didn't know you had. At this point, you can never really make portals. The portals kind of appear throughout the game, and you use those portals to go back and forth between the comic book and the real world, which the real world, I guess, the 3D world, which is really
right.
important to solve puzzles as you go along. So we'll talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about what kind of puzzles you can solve. But basically, you get back in the book, and Moonbeard is like, "Oh my god, hey, I gotta tell you something. We live in a comic book, and Humgrump has taken control. And if we don't stop him, he's going to change the story of this comic book, where basically evil reigns, and the good guys, Jod and Violet and Thrash, don't always lose or something."
right.
So the first thing that Moonbeard tells you is, "Hey, we have to go alert the queen. We have to go talk to her." So the queen, she's the ruler of this land, in the Plucky Squire canon, and she lives in like a castle in the middle of the map, and so you have to go through the swamplands, I think, uh,
Hmm.
to get to it, because I don't know. Moonbeer says like, oh, the main path to go there is blocked off, so kind of he guides you to go to that swamplands where there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of frogs, and you kind of get your first real sense of adventure in the game.
Hmm.
You have to go through a series of maybe 10-ish pages, both in the top down 2D and the platforming 2D space, to get
Hmm.
to you know the end of that section, which is really fun. That
Right.
it's great.
Yeah, and around here, I think is also where you're introduced to some of the like external mechanics of the game. Like for example, like we said, there's all these parts in the game where you have to go from 2D to 3D to like find something in the 3D world that's going to help you solve a puzzle in the 2D world. And at the same time, you also get these tools in the form of like gloves where Jot can use the gloves to turn the pages of the book to like go back to previous stages that you've been on. And you can also tilt the book. You can like tilt it kind of open and close to like make objects roll and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that adds to like the puzzling aspect of it. Like, there's certain puzzles where you need that stuff to solve. Like, there's the text on the page and you need a certain word from a couple of pages ago to solve the puzzle, basically,
Hmm.
something like that. Or there's a big ball that you have to tilt the page to make it roll into like a receptacle that opens a door or something. So that kind of opens up and starts to expand the types of like puzzles in the game. But still, like none of the puzzles are super crazy. There weren't really a lot of times where I felt stumped by the puzzles, I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
And in the like, there were a few instances where I felt like the answer to a puzzle was like a little obscure. But once I realized what it was like, oh, okay, that's obvious, fine. How did you feel about this, like the puzzles in that early stage of the game?
My cat just jumped on my lap, so I got slightly distracted as you were talking. But I felt those beginning puzzles were clever. I think at the in that place you do the moat puzzle where you have either water or not water in the moat.
Yeah,
It says like this. I think they call it the moat. This moat is empty or something, and then you swap out empty with full because there is a previous page where someone said, "Oh, I'm so full," or something like that. Then it gets full of
yeah.
water, and you can traverse on the lily pads to like do X, Y, Z. Yeah, I thought it was clever, and I actually took like 30 minutes or so to get past this. Like a one specific puzzle, because I didn't realize. I don't know if you got to this, but or I mean, if this happened to you, but at some point at the end of going through the swamplands, before you go back to the 3D world to get the bow, there's a fish that is out of the water, and I think he's like a Romeo and Juliet kind of like gag, and I
Yeah.
didn't know how to get to him. There's like in the comic book, there's a small little like opening underneath this bridge where you're supposed to like walk underneath, and I couldn't see that for the life of me. My eyes were not working or something, and so I thought that I had to do something very specific with the wording
Oh man.
to get to the fish. And I walked around and like flipped the pages for, I swear, for like 30 minutes. Again, that is not really a puzzle. It's just me not like seeing things correctly. And then I was able to.
The real puzzles we make for
Yeah,
ourselves. Let's
exactly.
be honest.
That's exactly right. But no, once I got to that was fine. How did you feel?
Yeah, good. I mean, I think I had like the opposite experience of you in that moment. I think I just saw the path and I was
No.
like, oh, there's a fish.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, these first puzzles, there were definitely times where I spent more time than I should because I was like flipping back like several pages, being like, where's the word I need or what do I need to be doing here? But then the answer would be like right in front of me and super simple, and I'd be like, okay, that was dumb. But yeah, so but the puzzles, they're pretty fun.
yeah.
Nothing like super crazy, but pretty fun at this stage.
And then you
So
get
like you
to
said, the
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
you get to a point where this kind of gimmick happens in every single arc or chapter. The game is divided by chapters, of course. It's a comic book of the game, where there's going to be a hard stop. So you're like adventuring as a 2D character, again, top down and 2D platforming. Maybe you go outside of the book to like flip some pages, solve some puzzles, but you are really solving everything inside of the book. And then something happens and it's like, hey, you can't go forward because of XYZ. So in this case at the beginning is you're not powerful enough, I guess, to defeat these like mosquitoes, and you need the help of uh basically you need a bow is what they tell you. And so how am I going to get this like powerful magical weapon? Well, I'm going to have to figure it out outside of the book. So you
Yeah.
exit the book and then you start a 3D adventure, and you know bookworm usually guides you, or mini beard or something tells you, hey, you need to get like this item, and that's how you'll progress through the story. And I thought, and I don't know about you, so this is like a big thing, I thought the 3D part of the game was a lot better than the 2D part of the game. So I felt the adventuring outside of the book was where I had the most fun, whereas inside of the book in the 2D space, I kind of struggled a little bit with not I struggled a little bit. I just didn't have as much fun, is what I would say.
Yeah, I have overall thoughts about it that I'll probably
Okay.
save for later.
Sure.
But I think I mostly agree with that. I think I mostly agree with that.
Hey, I like it.
Um,
I like the disagreeing sometimes, we need different perspectives in video game book club.
yeah, that's right. Embrace debate. No, but yeah, so this is the first time, kind of like you said, in the past, the little things you do in like the 3D external world are just like, grab something and go back in, or like go along this little path and go back in the book. But this is the first time it's like a built out, area to explore, like a big kind of series of puzzles and, areas to go and things to do. And so, like you said, your goal here is to find a ranged weapon to like take on these mosquitoes. So when you go into the world, you see at like the top of this castle made of, building blocks and stuff like that is a playing card, like kind of a Magic the Gathering style playing card. With it's like an elf with a bow, and it's like, okay, well, I gotta go get her bow, right? So Jot kind of makes his way up until he gets to the playing card, and this is when you reach kind of the next like boss encounter, I would say.
Mhm.
But it was a disappointing one for me. Like I was really, because it's set up, you go into the playing card, so you use one of these like magic portals that you use for traversal. To go into the playing card. So Jot is now like in the playing card with the elf and the bow. And the elf is like an enemy, basically. The elf thinks you're an enemy and wants to fight you, and it sets up kind of like a Pokemon
Yeah.
esque like battle, kind of turn based battle. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but it was like very apparent that it was impossible to lose, pretty much. And like there was like I tried to approach it, I think, from like a Undertale, I guess, point of view, where there's specific things you can do to like avoid combat. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't need to be fighting with this elf. Like, let me pick the talk to her option, and maybe like I'll win her over or something like that. But it just never happened. Like, you just keep talking to her, and she's just like, let's fight. And it's like, but I don't want to fight. And like, even when you do fight, it's just like, you hit them for a little damage, they hit you back for a little damage. You hit her for a little damage, they hit you back, and you just do that for like a minute or two straight, and like nothing really happens. But eventually, Jot or the bookworm or someone says something about, please, we need this bow to help defeat Humgrump. And that's when the elf ranger is like, oh, you're against Humgrump? I thought you were with Humgrump. Okay, you can have this bow, basically. um, so I like thought it was such a creative encounter, but I was like a little disappointed by it at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of like the theme of the game. And this is a good game, but these developers genuinely, they have lightning in a bottle, genuinely. Like they are so creative. The art design is impeccable. The story is fun, like it's really good, but the gameplay is just so shallow. And listen, maybe this game isn't meant for us. Maybe it's just meant for children. But there are so many different accessibility options. There is a easy game mode or a like normal like mode. There's no like hard mode, but there's a normal mode. And so I feel like there's enough accessibility things that they did so for that the game could work for kids and for adults.
Right.
But they just decided, nah, every single encounter that is like fun and gets you excited just never delivers. Like this fight, like you said,
Yeah.
it was so catered to what they wanted you to do. It was like you need to hit her 4 times, and if you hit her 4 times, then a conversation will prompt, and then you'll get like new abilities, and then you'll hit her again 4 times with the new abilities, and then you'll talk to her. She'll give you the bow. If you do anything outside of that, the game says no, 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 no. Do what I want you to do. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And just to like talk more about the thing you mentioned, I feel like there's a little bit of like, and this is like a bigger conversation about the game, but it's like I'm not sure who exactly the audience for this game
a
is,
hundred
because it's
percent,
like
Ben.
it's 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 simple enough where you could give it to, a child and they'd probably have a great time with it. Like it's very cute, it's funny, it's like, engaging, not too hard. I think it'd be great with that. But at the same time, like there's certain gameplay elements. There's like, little tongue-in-cheek jokes and stuff. There's like, some puzzle encounters, I would say, that are a little harder and require a little more thought. So I feel like it kind of exists in a weird area where like I just don't know who they intended this game for. Because like for you and me, it's just not deep or engaging enough to be like super fun, I would say. Unless you're just like turning your brain off, like I've had a long day, I just want to like laugh a couple times and chill out basically. And maybe you do, and that's
Yeah,
awesome.
true,
But
true.
I feel like it just like there's a little bit of an identity crisis going
I
on.
think so too, especially with I mentioned the art scrolls at the beginning.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what makes me even think like what who is this game for? You know, like
Yeah.
kids do not care about those art scrolls. I would imagine. You know, it's like kind of like tidbits about how the game was like thought out or created. You know, and they don't really give anything. There's no reward for getting them. It's just there for you to collect. And if you did it, cool. If you didn't, oh well, you know. And there's like they vaguely want to give it combat mechanics. You can power up like maybe your weapon a few times. There's 2 new attacks that you can unlock. But powering up those attacks or getting those attacks didn't really add anything, I felt, to the actual combat or gameplay. It just, you know, you power up. I think we've talked about this once before with like another Crab's Treasure, where sometimes it doesn't feel great when you power up an attack only for the enemy in the next room to be 1 HP stronger. So why did you give me the power up attack? Just do no power up attacks and make every enemy the same HP. Like don't give me
Right.
fake like progress because
Yeah, it's
and
like
that's
they're
super
just
deep
kind of
into it, but
yeah, it's just like kind of shoehorning in that like, RPG progression. It's
yeah.
like, no, that's not what this is.
Yeah. No, but
Yeah, I
again, the
mean we can so
developers
we can
were so good, man. I mean, this again,
yeah.
like they I want to give them props, but at the same time, like this game is definitely not like I'm not the target audience. I don't think, but I enjoyed my
No,
time
yeah.
with it for sure.
Yeah. So we'll get into those deeper thoughts again,
Hmm.
when we kind of wrap up our discussion. But
Yeah.
so moving on from there, you get the bow from the elf and you head back into the book, and it starts off kind of the next like boss style encounter. And it's another one of these moments where it kind of introduces some sort of like gameplay, a new type of gameplay basically. And it basically is, you could think kind of like Duck Hunt
Hmm.
basically, where there's these like mosquitoes flying at you, and Jot transforms into this like Rambo-esque character. He's got like jungle paint on his body, and he's like ripped and buff, and he's got the bow. And you have to like move an aiming crosshair around and like shoot the mosquitoes with the bow before they get to you. So that was that encounter. Not like a lot to say about that. It was fun,
Yeah.
but it was over in a couple minutes, and that was kind of it.
It was fun. It was hard too.
So
I was like
yeah,
pressing the trigger too early, so then I couldn't really move the
right,
like
right.
crosser to the mosquito. So yeah, I got hit a bunch.
Yeah. But so after that, you make your way through the swamp and you reach Artia, which is the capital of this kingdom, basically, and it's also Violet's hometown. So you get there, and Artia is like this kingdom area filled with basically references to artists. And this is another reason why I was like, I don't really know who the audience is, because what kid playing the game is going to recognize, the nods to like Andy Warhol and all
Yeah.
these like obscure artists that are there. And maybe they don't need to, but it's just like, I don't know.
I
But I
loved it. For
appreciated
me,
it. Like
yeah,
the,
I loved it for me.
yeah,
I
I,
was like,
I
oh,
liked it. Yeah.
this is great. Like the Frida Kahlo is there, like someone portraying as the Scream. That was
Yeah.
awesome. It was really cool.
Yeah, I probably spent like 20 minutes just walking around to all the different artists and like seeing what they had to say and stuff like that. Um, so it was a really cool area. There's, a part where to progress further, you need to like round up these pigs for a farmer. Don't know why. You just kind of have to. You got some time to kill, I guess. So you
Yeah,
have to
right. That's what they
go around
say.
Ardia.
They're like, hey, you have
Yeah,
time to go do the
yeah,
side quest. Okay.
yeah. I know. So you just, round up these pigs. There's one that you have to like roll back into it using the tilt mechanic. Um, but I felt like, getting into it here, like that stretch of like maybe 2 hours of gameplay culminating with like the end of Ardia, I was like, I finished it and I was like, I don't feel like I really did anything for the past like 2 hours. Like there was the moment of the kind of duck hunt mosquito battle, and that was fun, but aside from that, like there just wasn't really a lot to do in that stretch of game. I wouldn't say like the combat was super basic, the puzzles weren't super crazy. Artia was really interesting, but like you just kind of do this little side quest and then go to the queen. So I finished that and I was like, I don't. It's not like pulling me in. Like I'm not really getting it right now.
I
What did you
agree.
think?
I totally agree. It took maybe yeah, it's about 2 hours, maybe a little bit more. And that's the weakest part of the game, which is such a shame
Totally.
because the second half of the game is so strong. And
Yeah.
especially when you start adventuring outside of the book, for me, it's the most fun that the game has to offer. And I was like, give me that from the beginning. Like, give me that from the beginning, and I would adore this game. But Ben and I, we have Video Game Book Club. We completed the game, but if you fell off from the game up until this point, play more because the second half it really where the game shines. I think
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
much
I
better.
agree.
But I agree, like getting there was such a slog, and I feel like a lot of on the subreddit on the Plucky Squire, I saw so many people like not going through with the game after like an hour or so because yeah, like nothing really happens. Just kind of like in a real book, sometimes in those fantasy books you read like 300 pages and like nothing has really happened. You just like have the whole backstory of something. It almost like they did that but like in a comic book setting. Like that doesn't really work in a comic book setting. But
Yeah.
once you get through this like side quest and you get through Ardia and you meet the queen, Chroma is her name. She tells you that she already knew that we were, I think, right, that we were in a comic book setting. But she gives you a new piece of information, or you discover a new piece of information that Humgrump has started stealing kind of part objects from other books and putting them
Right.
in the Jot comic book or the Plucky Squire comic book. And so basically, I think there's like a machines or 1001 machines or something book, in Sam's bedroom, and all of these like different tanks and machines and knights and stuff got taken away from that book, and Humgrum kind of like put them in the Plucky Squire book, and so now you have a whole new world of like uh, enemies and puzzles and different things that you need to do to stop Humgrum from destroying basically what the Plucky Squire is.
Yeah, it's a cool kind of addition to the game because it's like very industrial and the art style like clashes with everything else, so it's very obvious that it shouldn't be there. And it introduces, some other mechanics that we'll talk about. But yeah, so you talk to the queen, fill her in, she fills you in, and while you're talking to her, there's a mountain in the background,
Yeah.
and when you walk in, Thrash kind of says, "Oh, hey, that's Trarg Mountain. That's like my home mountain in the background." And as you're talking to her, there's a giant explosion on the mountain, and so obviously Thrash is like, we got to go to my hometown. Like something's going on. We got to
Yeah.
go. And so Jot and Thrash head out to go to the mountain, and Violet stays back with Moonbeard to like work on, some spells or potions or whatever to take out Humgrum, basically. So the party size decreases a little bit. Not that that like actually matters or anything. But Jot and Thrash go to the mountain. You make your way up through the mountain. You find Thrash's uncle like dying as
Yes,
soon
I
as you
was
get
like,
there.
what?
I know.
I wrote in my
It's like,
notes. I wrote in my notes that I swear that they only made him like they killed him because to make the Trollhalla joke. Because it was a great
yeah,
joke. It was a great joke. Because he
yeah.
says, I'm going to Trollhalla or something, which is hilarious, but also like, why are they killing people in a children's book?
I know, and it's like he dies, and Thrash doesn't like cry or anything. He just says like, "Rock on, Uncle," and like gives a rock and roll sign, and like that's it. It's like, okay, I guess that's how they deal with loss in this book.
It's so funny. It's good stuff,
So
honestly. The writing is great.
yeah, yeah. Again, the writing throughout I think is really good.
Hmm.
But so you make your way through the mountain. Some more kind of basic puzzles and platforming and stuff that doesn't really bear talking about really. And you make your way, and eventually Jot's uncle, or sorry, Thrash's uncle, kind of comes back and visits you from the afterlife and says like, if you're going after Humgrum, you got to get past the Mega Eagle. So I got to train you on how to get past the Mega Eagle. And it starts this little mini game where Thrash's uncle is like throwing objects at Thrash on like a beat
Hmm.
basically. So like there's like a song going on in the background and the objects are thrown with the beat, and you have to kind of destroy the objects before they hit you on the beat as well. So it's kind of like a little rhythm mini game. It reminded me of Hi-Fi Rush, honestly.
I was gonna say the same thing. You probably were so good at
Yeah.
it because my man was
Oh
Hi-Fi
yeah,
Rush
dude.
King. So
Cracked
good,
at it,
so
man.
good. Yeah, it was very fun. I think that this is probably the strongest minigame I felt. I think they felt
Agreed.
it too because they put it. You have to play this minigame a bunch, and it's good because it actually is difficult. You have to lock in and like do the beat,
Yeah.
and they throw curveballs in there all the time where they do a half beat like button mash that you have to do instead of like a kind of like in Hi-Fi Rush, instead of beat 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 there's like a half beat in there. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was great. It was great. So you do that with the uncle, and then at this point you get the stamp to the first uh different kind of like outside of the comic book power that you can use to manipulate things inside of the comic book that isn't the gauntlets. This
Yeah.
one is a stamp. And can you remind me the outside theme for this one? Do you remember what that is?
I think it was like prehistoric and there were
This is
dinosaurs
the
and stuff
prehistoric
like
one. Okay,
that.
this one is it
I
was
think
was
so.
really fun. If that's the one, I
Yeah.
thought that's the one at the beach. Actually, is this the space one? Maybe this is the space one.
Um, I don't know.
It's okay. It doesn't
I'm
matter.
not
It doesn't
sure.
matter. But at
They
this,
all kind of blend
they
together.
do, they do. But at this point, like again, you have to go outside of the comic book, and you have a adventure in the 3D space. And
Yeah.
man, it's so fun. Let's pretend this is the space one. I have a feeling it is, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, and basically, again, you have to like go through this adventure. In this case, there's three items that you need to collect. You collect them, and at the end, you put together this like you're the dude's rocket dad or whatever. Again, we don't have to get super into like every single puzzle, but the mini
Yeah.
game or the boss in this instance is a really fun one. It's like a shoot 'em up game
Yeah.
where you have a jetpack and you're flying around in a 2D space and you are just absolutely going ham on some robots.
Yeah.
And you're like
kind of like
freeing.
kind of like Galaga or like Space Invaders style, I would
Yes.
say, but more of like a side scroller.
And if you follow the Game Boy games, there's a game in the list of best Game Boy games that's called Choplifter. And it's like a helicopter Game Boy game where you have to rescue people, kind of like in this mini game, where as you're
Oh, okay.
shooting these machines, they drop like civilians that you have to rescue and go drop them into like the friendly zone or whatever. And that it reminded me of that like old school rescue type games, and it was really really fun. You get the stamp, and this is the first bug that I encountered in the game where I
Oh.
stamped um, the like it's what is it? It's like a conveyor belt with like
It's like a saw blade.
it's like a saw
So
blade. Thank you.
you need the stamp because of like the industrial machinery that Humgrump is bringing in. There's like a spinning saw blade that blocks your path. So you get the stamp, you can go out of the book and stop the saw blade and basically make it through it.
You
But so
freeze it
what were you
basically.
saying?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I froze it. I got back inside the book, and then I couldn't walk past the saw blades. It was impossible for my for Jot to walk in between the saw blades. I couldn't jump. I couldn't move. I like would go outside of the book and I would stamp again. It was really annoying too because you go into a portal right next to the saw blade, but that portal is just a one way. So I
Oh.
couldn't get out of the comic book in that portal, so I had to like I walked back 3 pages or something, got out,
Oh.
moved the pages back, took the stamp out, put the stamp back in, then walked back in, and I couldn't go through. So
Oh man.
I looked it up on Reddit. I think I made a post or something, and someone told me that I had to load a save file, like a previous save file or something. So the game keeps your last maybe 5 auto saves, and so I had to load like a few back, replay some stuff, and then I was able to go through the subway. So it was a little bit annoying. Listen, it wasn't like game breaking or anything. Maybe deviated me like 15 minutes, but it was a little bit like okay.
I mean, thank God, because that could have like soft locked you
Oh,
if
dude, if
you weren't
I
able to
had him,
do
yeah,
that.
I don't know if I would have replayed the whole game then.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, so you get the stop stamp, I think it's called, and you kind of stop the machinery and you're able to make it through. And then you encounter the actual Mega Eagle. It's basically the same kind of mini game as before with Thrash's uncle, but like a little more ramped up this time. I thought it was really fun. Like you said, it was the one I enjoyed the most. I wished it was like a little harder. Honestly, I was like, I could keep playing this.
Dude,
Like I just want to keep doing
you're the rhythm king. I don't even know. Like
Rhythm King, bro.
you're
Crown me.
God, you're the best, bro. You can just mash some buttons at the right time.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I'm correct. But yeah, so you get past, or you don't like kill the Mega Eagle. You basically just like earn his respect, I guess,
Hmm.
and make it past him. You have to go through a few more puzzles and stuff, but at some point you make it to like the top of the mountain. There's kind of a little more of a classic boss fight where there's like a big machine that's attacking the village that you have to defeat using the stop stamp to like stop its blades and stuff like that. But you beat it, save the village, save the other mountain trolls. But as you do that, in the background you see like a big train convoy of these like industrial, mining equipment carrying away all the resources from the mountain to some unknown location. And so John and Thrash are just like, all right, gotta follow the train. Like, let's get after it. And that's kind of the end of this segment. From there, you follow the train tracks. Jot and Thrash get to Boogie Beach, which I thought
Yeah,
was a pretty fun area. I thought
definitely.
Boogie Beach was pretty cool. Kind of the unique mechanic here is that there's a lot of objects buried in the sand. And I think this is probably the puzzle that took me the longest. So there's a point where you get to Boogie Beach and there's like a starfish stuck in the sand. And they
Mhm.
say, oh, we need somebody that's really good at digging to dig the starfish up. And you're like, all right. I spent literally probably like 10, 15 minutes like flipping around the pages. And they say one thing specifically. They say like you need to shift your perspective to find the person that's going to do it. And
Yes.
so I was like tilting the pages. I was like, trying to flip the page and like see if I could look behind palm trees. And I was like, I do not understand. Like, I do not get this puzzle at all. Eventually, I realized that on like the chapter title page, there's like a palm tree and a little bird like sleeping under it. So you actually have to like go into the title page of this chapter to get the book, to get the character. His name is Tumba. Tumba's awesome. He just lives to dig. I mean, the guy just loves to dig. He's really funny. There's some really funny dialogue moments. But yeah, you basically, get Tumba. What did you think of that? Did you struggle with that as well? I thought that was kind of like, I guess my brain just wasn't wired to think of it like that. Maybe yours is.
No, yeah, it was just kind of like the Romeo fish. It's just I just
Right.
flipped the pages and I was like, oh yeah, let me go to the let me go through every page and I saw him and I was like, okay. It like it I remember though specifically that they did say you have to shift your perspective. And in some sense you
Yeah.
do because the title page is definitely a different art style and a different kind of
Yeah.
2D perspective. But no, yeah, I found him immediately.
That's so funny.
Tamba is the coolest though. My man knows how to dig and he digs really well. I
He's just
agree
saying,
with
yeah.
you that the jungle slash like beach is the strongest 2D area of the comic book.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it was paired, we had some really good back to backs. And this is why I was saying that the game peaks here so well with the Trollhalla Mountain
Yeah.
into the space 3D themed adventure, then back into the beach with Tomba and digging and bunch of puzzles with the digging, which was fun. And then you go outside and basically what happens at the beach is that they are making these like gigantic machines that there's no way that the Plucky Squire with his little sword is going to be able to defeat. And so
Yeah.
the book or the game tells you, okay, you need to find an item. This is like a hard block again. You need to go outside of the book and find something that will defeat these machines. You go
Yeah.
outside, and then they make like a Jurassic Park themed adventure. And in this one, you have to like, um, what is it? You have to light some candles, is the gimmick. So you light some candles, and
Hmm.
then you go all the way to the top of like whatever Sam constructed for for the Plucky Squire to go up there. You go through like a kind of like reminded me a little bit of like Indiana Jones or something like Crash Bandicoot, where something is following you and you have to
Yeah.
run away. It's like a big T Rex is gonna eat you. And this at this point, you have another gimmick. Again, this game is full of gimmicks, so sorry if we forget some. Where they give you like a huge
Yeah.
axe and you're like walking around like destroying things with a huge axe. And then you discover a really interesting character at the top of the Jurassic Park. It's like basically Jot, but from a different series of comic books, where in this comic book, instead of being a plucky squire, he's kind of like a Doctor Who character who can kind of travel through time. Is
Yeah.
that Doctor Who, the guy who travels through time? Am I thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think so.
So, and he like travels through time.
Don't get mad at us, Doctor Who
Yeah, I'm
fans.
so sorry. um, he travels through time and stuff, and yeah, it just basically he talks to you for like 5 minutes and he goes away, and I'm like, all right, thank you.
Yeah. Time
Excuse me,
Tim, I think, is
time
his name.
Tim.
He's just like a time traveler that shows up and he's like, boy, look at these dinosaurs.
Yeah,
And it's like, Okay,
Okay, thank you
cool.
very much. And then he gives you, or you unlock the bomb stamp. So now the second
Yes.
stamp mechanic is that you can stamp a bomb on top of these machines and other things that like will, work on puzzles, and they'll explode. And so basically, if at any point Jot sees some machines, you know that you have to get out of the book and then go on top of them, stamp them with the bomb, and then they'll explode, and then you kind of go
Yeah.
through the game that way.
Right.
Then you go to maybe
Yeah.
like the most fun boss fight again in the 2D space that isn't like a Thrash or Violet or gimmicky thing, where you have to fight this huge machine by um, some knights are sending bombs at you. You have to dodge the bombs,
Hmm.
then you have to get out of the book and like do a series of different things, get back inside and defeat the machine to
Yeah.
basically eradicate Humgrump's like army of machines that he got from the book. So that again, those
Yeah.
back to back areas were really great. And then
Hmm.
at this kind of point in the game, the tone shifts a little bit, and you kind of start the maybe I want to say the quote unquote like the end of the game. Uh, and I think this part of the game took another maybe like 2 or 3 hours, and that's like a different kind of section. Again, this middle section was really fun. This last section
Hmm.
I thought was really strong as well, but not as strong as the previous one. Especially because,
Yeah.
again, as for me, the 3D space was my favorite part, and Ben will walk us through how this last part happened. But basically, in the 3D space, you don't really have anything fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. So you kind of see you defeat kind of the boss at Boogie Beach, and you see it's kind of too late. Basically, the Humgrump has already manufactured this giant like industrial army and sent them all towards the capital at Ardia.
Oh, right. Yeah, I
And
misspoke there.
so, no, you're good. Yeah. So the, obviously Jot and Thrash see that. They go back and reunite with Moonbeard and Violet, and everybody heads toward the capital. You get there, and it's like a war scene, basically.
Yeah.
Like, there's like dead villagers all over the place. Like, all the art is destroyed and stuff. There's like tank tracks everywhere. Ardia has been like destroyed by Humgrump's forces. And, so you go in, you're like, all right, time for the final showdown. Let's do it. You go in, confront Humgrump, and he just like yeets, blasts Moonbeard,
Hmm.
like kills Moonbeard, vaporizes him basically, and it's just like, oh, okay, well we're screwed, I guess, because we can't deal with that. So Moonbeard gets killed, and Humgrump imprisons the gang. So he imprisons Jot, Violet, and Thrash. Do you want to talk us through how the book like shifts with that? Because I think there's kind of this like meta narrative that happens in this moment when Humgrump like ascends to the throne of Ardia and starts controlling the book. Do you want to
Yeah, it's
talk to us
it's
about
it's a
that?
little Toy Story esque. Basically, uh, Bookworm I think explains this to I think maybe it's Bookworm or Mini Beard or someone explains this to Jot. But basically, because the book now doesn't have maybe the creativity or the positivity of Jot defeating the evil guy and being like this really fun and engaging and creative book. Now it's become like this dark, like everyone sucks. Like Humgrump is the meanie bad guy, and this is terrible.
Yeah.
Then Sam will lose interest in the book, and in turn Sam will, or any reader of a book, I guess this is like, as Ben said, like a meta narrative, they won't like the book anymore, and two things will happen. Basically, the book will be shelved, and this like shelving of the book is the book will be forgotten, and so the characters will be forgotten, and then basically they will all kind of dissipate into nothingness. But the second thing is that Sam will lose interest in becoming the person that they want to be. So Sam wants to be
Right.
a writer, an author. They're so inspired by the Plucky Squire that they want to write their own series of books in the future. And maybe that's Time Tim. Who knows? Time Tim is can be from the future or from the past. He can time travel. So I just made that
Right.
connection in my head. Um, and basically Bookworm tells Judd you have to save. You absolutely have to save your story, because if not, Sam will never want to be an author, and all of his creations will never exist, and in turn, like, we'll kind of cease to exist in this bedroom as well.
Yeah, so like you said, there's a really cool moment that happens when Humgrump like takes over the story. The game like does like a restart basically. Like the application doesn't actually close, but the game like starts over, and like the intro, all of the like developer stuff, when you start up a game and it's like the developer logos, it's all different. The main title is different. Instead of the Plucky Squire, it's like the Magnificent Humgrump, I think it is.
Yeah.
Instead of Jot like standing with his sword on the title screen, it's Humgrump like standing there. I thought that was a really cool moment, like another moment that underscores like the personality of the game.
The
It was super
narrator
cool, kind of, and
changes too. It's so good.
yeah,
He's like
then
same,
yeah,
definitely great voice, but he's like, his tone is different. He hates the
yeah,
Plucky Squire now, and when he talks about him, he's
yes,
like the meanie, terrible Squire, which is really cool
right.
too.
The loathsome, terrible squire better not escape from his cell.
Yeah, Ben did such a
And
better
you're just
impression than
like,
me.
no. Yeah, but so like the whole book shifts basically once Humgrump takes over. So you restart the game as Jot, like imprisoned in in the capital. All of your equipment is lost. Your sword, the stamps you got, the gloves you got, all the equipment you've been using is gone. So I think maybe that's what you were referring to when you talked about like the platforming not being that fun.
Yes, yeah. So
But yeah,
not
so
not
you have
then.
to like go. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so at that point, basically, the game becomes well, actually, Moonbeer's mouse, or like mouse
Yeah.
sidekick, is the one who helps you escape from prison. But as Ben said, you
Right.
don't have anything with you anymore, and so you go through this 2D space without anything, and you
Mm.
start unlocking. I think you go find Violet first, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You find Violet first, and I think at that point you do exit the book right before you get Thrash, or you get Thrash. I can't remember.
Yeah, you do because I think you go out and get like some piece of equipment and then come back in, and then get Thrash. But yeah.
So at this point, I want to mention two things in this area. One, there's a mouse mini game where it's like a rhythm. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like uh, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, if you've ever played that, or like Crypt of the Necromancer, a roguelike, if you've ever played that, where every like beat, your character and everything around you, every other character around you also moves at the same time. So it has that kind
Yeah.
of like beat where I move forward, you move forward, I move forward, you move forward at the same time. And you
Mm.
go through these mini games, and those were really, really fun. I actually wanted those scattered all over the game because I really enjoyed
So did
those.
I.
Um,
Me too.
but basically, you go outside of the book, and Bookworm is there to kind of like guide you through what you have to do. And again, the book has been shelved. It's like super high up in like the highest shelf that Sam has, and Bookworm is like, you have to bring this book back. But at the
Mm.
same time, you don't have any of your items. You need to get all of your items back. So you
Yeah.
go on this like stealth adventure outside of the book. Sam's room is dark. It's like black and white. There's no color to it. There's all these beetles scattered around for some reason, and a lot of knights too. Humgrumps like henchmen. And you just have to
Yeah.
stealth your way around for like 20 minutes. The stealth aspect of the game was fine. It wasn't like incredible. You just basically just slowly walk around everyone. You start
Yeah.
getting like your sword, of course. You start getting all of your gauntlets. You start getting your stamps. Finally, you're kind of back at full strength, and with those gauntlets, you're able to like toss the book back um, into Sam's desk.
Yeah. On the desk. Yeah, and so that, putting it back on the desk like rejuvenates the book and like in puts the, I guess, I don't know, creative energy back into it that like brings the story to life. But so you get, you, like you said, you get the book back on the desk, you make your way back into the book. At this point, you have the crew back with you, and you get like a little bit of backstory here as you go about this stuff. You find out that Humgrump is Moonbeard's brother, who basically was just like never as good as Moonbeard and became jaded and like I don't know grumpy because of that.
He reads
He
a
wants to be
poem.
like yeah, he wants to be like a poet,
Oh, it's so
but he's
good.
not very good at it. Yeah, there's it's like a funny moment.
I honestly, the
Um,
poem made me laugh. Like I genuinely laughed.
yeah.
It was so funny, and the way the narrator read it, it's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good moment. You find out like a bit about the a bit about Humgrump, I guess, just like give him a little bit more depth, not a ton. And then you make it back to Humgrump again, this time for like a final showdown. Moonbeard reincarnates in like a very Lord of the Rings type moment with like Moonbeard becomes like Moonbeard the White. Basically, he like there. It's like this whole play on the story of Gandalf. Basically word for word, but in with like some references and stuff like that. Moonbeard reincarnates, and you take on Humgrump. And so this is like the final boss of the game, right? And it takes the form of basically all of the boss fights that you've done already kind of back to back. So it's almost like a boss rush. So you do like the honey badger, except this time it's like the badger is Humgrump basically, and you have to do the same kind of punch out fight. And then the mega eagle again, and again it's Humgrump, and you have to do the rhythm game. And then you do sort of the like bubble buster, like Candy Crush type game that Violet does. And then all of these little mini games you kind of do back to back. And I thought that was pretty fun. Like those were the moments of the game I enjoyed the most, so I was like kind of happy to do them again. I thought like it would have been fun to maybe iterate or make them, I don't know, they probably were harder, but they didn't really feel harder. But I thought they could have been like maybe harder in that
The
moment to make it more of like an epic encounter.
Yeah, the violets one was harder for sure. I actually
Yeah.
lost twice in that one. Kind
Okay.
of sad to
Yeah,
say,
that was the
but
hardest of the
yeah,
three for
I
sure.
definitely
For
struggled. The
sure.
other ones, like you said, yeah, I didn't feel maybe that they were harder, but it was really fun and it was epic. Definitely, like this is okay. The final showdown is happening, and then
Right.
basically you finish these three mini fights, and then Humgrump is like, no, this is not even my final form, you don't even know, bro. And so he escapes the book, he leaves the book,
Yes.
and he becomes this monster like butterfly situation. And then you Jot leaves the book as well, and with the help of your rocket friend you have your jetpack again, you have your gun again, and you do this shoot 'em up three-phase boss fight against
Yeah.
Humgrump. And honestly, it was pretty epic. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so did I. I thought that was a really strong end to the game. It's like very. There's a direct comparison I could make, but I'm not going to make it because it's a spoiler. But it's reminiscent of some other types of combat where you're like flying around in this 3D space with all. It's like very bullet hell esque. All these projectiles coming out, you have to like dodge around and shoot him at the same time. And eventually, you beat him. It's this very epic finale. It's very cool. And that's it. You make it back. You get back in the game, or you get back in the book. The book is restored. Everybody's
Yeah.
happy. There's a big like party in the kingdom. And like the final story moment, I guess there's this like kind of hooded figure that's been appearing in some different cutscenes in the game that you never know who it is. And Jot sees him at the party and goes up to him, and he reveals himself as Time Tim, the time traveler that appeared to you when you were kind of in the prehistoric area. And he says, "Listen, the author of my book was inspired by this book, and like your success here went on to create me, and like I'm the character in this really successful book franchise that's now going to inspire, you know, a lot of other kids and stuff like that. So kind of a bit of a wholesome ending. You know, it not like a crazy ending, but it ties up the narrative, you know, gives you a sweet little moment, and that's it. It's on its way. So yeah, what did you think of that? I guess ultimate ending.
Yeah, I think it was good. I mean, ultimately, that's what the game needed, or like the Plucky Squire needed. Like the end goal was achieved. Everyone's happy. Book is restored. Time Tim is probably Sam's creation from the future, and
Right.
yeah, no, it was great. I really enjoyed it. That like ending, and I thought great. Like we finished the game. Everyone's happy. If at this point, I guess you have a couple options if you want to get all the art scrolls and kind of like complete the game as a completionist. You can replay every single chapter, and you can probably get all the items that you need to complete the game. And if not, you can close the game and not play it again if you want. Just like any other game.
And we'll talk about which one of those we did after this break. So we'll come back in the second half. We'll take some questions. We'll talk about the game. We'll give our book reports, and then we'll tell you what game we're going to be playing next month. So we'll be back in a second.
Welcome to part two of the show where we ask each other questions and we also answer your questions. The viewer, I don't know why I look this way. You guys are over here. Uh, where we answer your questions that you sent to us on Discord, on YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. We're everywhere. When
Yeah.
at Buenale Games. So thank you so much for
Yes.
always being active there and sending us your questions. We really appreciate it. Ben, I'll throw it over to you. You can ask the first one.
All right. So we got one viewer question this month, but it is a banger.
Oof.
It's a little philosophical, might make you think a little bit, but we're gonna see how we do. So this one's from our good friend Joe M. Ken, and Joe asks, the Plucky Squires mini games are largely referential to retro games of old. Another current popular game, UFO 50, is also trying to corner this market. Do you think we've reached something akin to the no new internet theory, but regarding games? AKA, do you think true innovations in video games are still possible? So I'm gonna throw it over to you to take a first crack at that.
I think, of course, new game innovations and inventions are still possible. There's no, to me, the no new internet theory or the no new art theory, the no new music theory is a bunch of BS. I'm not gonna lie.
Ooh,
Yeah,
give it to him.
I'm no, not. It's not about. Joe asked a great question. It's I'm
Tell
sure
him, bro.
no.
Tell him off. Tell him off right now.
You know, my wife is a graphic designer. She's an artist, and you know, my brother plays music and like does, I don't know, just things that are creative. There's just no way that there's never gonna be a new invention. Now, I want to say that fashion, music, games too, they live in a cycle that is circular. So things can come back in style. Obviously, games from the past can become like, you know, the next best thing 30 years later. And that's just the beauty of us being human. Like people had great ideas 30 years ago and maybe they were lost in the freaking Super Famicom in 1987 that now in 2024 some guy in his house can program and make a beautiful game that is homaging that game, but it's to a different beat, to a different graphic, to a different story, to something so unique and great in this time that, you know, we'll definitely enjoy. Now that's just,
Right.
those are just games that like, you know, are talking about games from the past. You know, we have good friends on the Discord that have given us some recommendations from the Steam Next Game Fest. Those games look super innovative. Like everyone's, all these developers, like you can literally buy a laptop and make a game right now. Obviously, it might not be great. It might take you 7 years, but you can do it. And there's just so much creativity out there that I just do not buy the whole no new internet theory. especially not in gaming. I think it's gonna take a long time to get there. And if you talk to a music theorist and they say, the same four chords have been used in every single pop song for the last 45 years, that's totally fine. But dude, that we still listen to new music. Like it's not like we're gonna stop doing it. So no, I think that humans are just so complex, creative, and amazing that we're always gonna make something new, make something fun, and make something that is gonna live forever. Like definitely.
Well, first, I mean, that's a great answer. So I just want to shout you out for a second. That's a great answer. I totally agree with what you said. I guess I have a slightly different opinion in that I think it's rare in all forms of media, in games, music, art, fashion, whatever. I think it's rare that something comes along that like truly is new and like truly shakes the paradigm. And I think those things do happen. Like, if we sat here, we could probably think of a few games, maybe you know some right now, that really did that, like really changed a lot about gaming. Like Dark Souls would probably be one. But for the most part, something I think about is there's this old classic TED talk of saying everything is a remix, right? All the music you listen to, all the art that's done, it's all a remix of something that's happened in the past. But that's not a bad thing. We are constantly learning and constantly evolving as a culture. Our interests are constantly shifting. And we take those things from the past and we iterate on them. We make them better, we make them more interesting. And especially in gaming specifically, with kind of the current state of gaming, where everything is like a Souls-like or a rogue-like or like something like that, it is very similar to that, where everything is kind of a remix. Like Nine Souls, incredible game, very heavily inspired by past games, though, right? You have to say, but it's incredible, right? So, I think it's okay for things to be so heavily inspired. I just think there also has to be that element of innovation. And for me in this game, that innovation was, the meta narrative, the perspective, the kind of traversal between different dimensions and stuff like that. But for the most part, I agree. Is there truly no more like creative ideas? I would say probably not. Or yes, there are still creative ideas, like you said, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing, right?
No, I think you
So
you said the first. I want to say my answer was so emotional and yours was so grounded, which like makes us. This is the duo that we have right here. I definitely am like first thought on my mind, emotional, and you're very methodical. You know what? That's why you're good at the rhythm games and not me.
let's go.
But I think you said the perfect word. It's an evolution. Like
Right.
things are an evolution of something from the past, and yeah, it's always gonna make things better, unique, sometimes worse, but interesting as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, and I think people truly believe that there's no new things, no creative things in the world anymore, and I think that's rather sad. I'm not gonna lie. I think that
Yeah.
it's not the greatest outlook on things, and I hope that people that think that way find some creativity or some source of inspiration for new things, for evolutionary things. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Joe, for that question. Though it was definitely a banger.
Banger.
I also
Banger.
want Ben and I to play UFO 50 at some point because I've heard great things. There's some really good gems in there. There's some frustrating games that I think would be fun to try. But Ben, my question for you
Hit me.
is Jot is one of the most interesting, maybe frustrating characters, I think, because he is the best guy ever, right? In the Plucky Squire. The dude is an author, and everyone has read every single book that he's written about his stories, his adventures, and everything. Tell me how you feel about the decision to make him a silent protagonist when it clearly he has probably a great personality, or he would be a very intelligent person to give thoughts and to give like quips and stuff, just like Violet and Thrash and Moonbeard are. I feel like they could have written him in such a more interesting way than just make him silent?
That's a good question. I agree with that totally. I think there could be something added there. I feel like the other characters in the game had such strong personalities that there wasn't really a moment where I sat and was like, man, I want to know what Jot has to say right now. Like, I feel like it would have been a fun perspective to get, but I feel like the other personalities already in the game, like Violet, like Thrash, and like Moonbeard, Minibeard, Pip, all these guys, Humgrump, the narrator, like those personalities, the writing on those was so strong. The personalities came through so clearly that there's just never a moment where I thought about it. Really, I guess. But it would have been interesting. Like I'm sure they could have done something along those lines that might have been cool. But yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think they could have almost toned them down a little bit more and give Jot some spotlights in some areas. I just feel like, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to I guess to feel more connected to Jot. You don't really feel like Jot, and so when you play Legend of Zelda, sometimes like you feel like you're Link. Because of
Right.
that silent protagonist, no one really knows who you are and stuff. But with this one, it's kind of like everyone knows who Jot is. Jot is like a being that exists and has existed and is like super famous. So I just wanted a little bit more from
Yeah, it's
that.
a
But
good
yeah.
point. Definitely. All right, I've got some rapid fire questions for
Ooh,
you. We're
okay,
gonna
let me
we're gonna
get ready.
put a bow on this here. I'll end it with I think the hardest one, but I'm gonna start off. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Favorite area in the game?
Space adventure in the 3D world. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite boss minigame?
Ooh. Ooh. I think honestly the Humgrum fight. Yeah. The last fight
Okay.
with the shoot 'em up.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Fair. Favorite side character?
Um. Oh man, I know it's supposed to be rapid fire, but I'm so bad.
Come on.
Um.
Come on. Go. 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 Go.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the digging guy. The digging guy. Tombat.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay. Did the game keep you engaged throughout?
No, no, it's
Okay.
something. Yeah, no. I'll talk about a little bit more in a second.
Yeah. So piggybacking off that. So the last question, you can answer this one a little longer. How did you feel about the overall like difficulty of the game, including combat and puzzles?
I felt fine. I didn't mind it. Again, I think this game isn't like yeah, it's not meant for like a super hardcore person to feel a hardcore challenge. Anyone can
Yeah.
enjoy this game. I think. I actually don't mind the difficulty, and I think they did a good job with the puzzles and the combat. It's fine. I think what they struggle with is how incessant the conversations surrounding the puzzles and the combat was. So you couldn't
Okay.
walk into a new page of the book without Violet, Thrash, Moonbeard calling you to tell you, oh my god, there's a door over there and you have to figure out how to unlock it. Like, of course, like I'm playing a video game. Like, I'm gonna figure it out. Thank you so much. Don't call me ever again. It got to the
Right.
point, Ben, that every single time when I was in the 2D comic book space, if I knew I was going to another page of the book, I would almost set my controller down because I knew as soon as I walked through another page, I would either get a cutscene or a conversation or some sort of quip. And I was genuinely surprised when I went through a different page in the comic book and I didn't get interrupted by some sort of conversation or cutscene. That's how incessant it was. So,
That's
no,
so
I think
funny.
honestly, you take that out and the game, instead of being 8 hours, becomes 5 hours. Probably isn't great that the game is so short, but it would have made for a better experience, I think.
Fair.
How did you
The
feel
only
about the
thing I'll say
combat?
about yeah, the only thing I'll say about that is like the combat, the basic combat of the game is super easy, right? Like there's never a moment where it felt challenging. The puzzles, I think, the puzzle difficulty, I think, was great. but with the combat, I had a moment where I remembered that like there's two difficulty settings of this game and I'm playing the harder one and it's still this easy and I was like this like come on like come on we can do a little more than this like but maybe it's not supposed to, maybe it's not like set up to be more of a challenge, and that's okay, not every game has to be hard. But that's all I got for you. So it's time for the book reports. We
Ooh.
got to give our grades. Got to give our grades. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I want you to go first.
Okay, I'm gonna give my little spiel. I
Yeah,
think the Plucky Squire, again, the developers had lightning in a bottle. They were insanely creative, immensely talented. There's no doubt about that in my mind. The game looks amazing. It runs, yeah, a couple bugs, 99% perfectly. It's okay. Games have bugs. Don't be too upset about it.
yeah,
The writing is excellent, and just the direction of the game was so strong. But the gameplay, like, it's a game at the end of the day. It's not a movie or a visual novel or a cartoon. It's a game, and I think the game side of things fell slightly short, and it just makes it frustrating. There's terrible games out there, and terrible
yeah,
games with everything is terrible, and you can just say that. You can say, ah, yeah, this game sucks. It's almost hard to say that the Plucky Squire isn't a great game, because everything about it is awesome except the gameplay, which is so unfortunate. It's so
yeah,
unfortunate, and it just takes a little bit of time to get to the best parts. And when the Plucky Squire just lets you play those 4 dungeons in a row, I had
yeah,
the best time. It just is unfortunate that those 2 hours of incredible game time are stuck between 8 hours of okay game. So with all of that, I'm gonna give this game a C plus.
okay, fair,
Yeah.
fair. I like that grade. I feel largely the same way. I think so much about this game is good. Like the art style, the tone of the game, the writing, like you said. Yeah, just echoing everything you said. Like so much about this game is good. There was just also so much filler for me, and it's something you already touched on. But like something I referenced earlier, whereas like kind of the middle, like the second quarter of the game, I guess you would say, basically nothing happens. Like there's not really a lot of combat happening. There's one boss encounter that's kind of fun, and the rest is just super basic combat, super basic platforming, and like dialogue. So like I enjoyed most of my time with this game. I just wasn't like it was a situation where I just wasn't like dying to come back. I wasn't like, oh, I got to play this again, tomorrow. I was just like, okay, I'll play a little bit more when I can. And it also brings into part of something factoring into it to me is the price of the game. I think you got it for free through PSN,
Mhm.
which is awesome. For me, I bought it through Steam. I paid, I think, $30 for it. You're paying $30 for an 8 hour long game, a very like well made 8 hour long game, not like the most fun 8 hour long game, but very well made. And I'm happy to like support the publisher and support the developers, but not like incredible value, not like super blown away by the game, I wouldn't say, but enjoyed it enough. So I'm right around where you are, probably C plus. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think $30 is probably a little steep. I got it yeah, like you said, on PSN. And if you have PlayStation Network, try it. Definitely try this game. You're going to like it, or you're going to enjoy some parts of it. You probably will feel the same that we feel. And that's not a bad thing. Like, games don't have to be 10 out of 10s every time. Obviously we wanted to play 10 out of 10 games all the time, but it was so unique and it was so interesting that definitely try it. And I just wanted to end the conversation by saying that this is the first game from these developers, and I'm definitely going to try and look out for their next game. I'm sure that they're going
Yeah.
to learn so much from the Plucky Squire. It's gotten a lot of reception, Most of it has been very positive. Some of it has been kind of like us in the middle ground. And
Sure.
but I think they're gonna learn so much, and they're gonna. I have no doubt they're gonna pull out some awesome game in 5 years or something like that. So definitely gonna keep an eye.
Yeah, and like we said, right? Everything is a remix, everything is a building block that the next iteration is going to improve on. So if this is the baseline for what, the studio is capable of, I'm okay with that. And if the next game, improves on it in any way, it's going to be an awesome game. So, yeah.
Totally. Speaking
That's the
of,
Plucky Squires.
oh,
Stamp it.
sorry.
Stamp it, bro. We're
Yeah, my bad.
stamping the
I keep
grades.
interrupting you.
No, what were you going to say?
Stamp it, baby. Stamp it. That's the Plucky Squire. But speaking of awesome games, Benny, what are we playing for November 2024?
Bro, so there was a sneaky reason why we picked the Plucky Squire. We picked it, because it's a chill game, but also because it's a short game. And we needed some more time for next month's game. So we have already been playing next month's game because it's a beefy one. It's a beefy one. It's actually a game I've played already, and it's a game I love. JP has not played it. JP is currently playing it. Maybe he'll give us a little teaser of his thoughts, maybe not. But for November, we are playing Nier Automata. Nier is a crazy game. It is a mishmash of so many different styles of gameplay. It is a deeply philosophical game, which if you haven't experienced that already, JP, you're going to, and it's going to stick with you. There are some moments in this game that are genuinely some of my favorite moments in gaming, and I am so excited to relive them and to live them through you.
Nier Automata, baby. All I want to say is those developers at Square Enix need to go to horny jail, baby. What the hell? They gotta go to horny jail immediately.
Yes,
Those guys
they
love
really do.
some sexy robots. That's all they love.
Oh
No, I
my
don't want
God,
to
they
say that to
really
deter
do.
people from playing the game. You should definitely check it out. It's been really fun so far. I don't think I've gotten to the philosophical parts. Obviously, I'm getting to some parts of the game where I'm figuring things out and things are happening, but I think I'm on the cusp and I'm about to be
Yes,
to in the
get ready.
really fun kind of
You ain't seen nothing
story
yet,
beats
buddy.
of the game. Yeah, but it's been really fun. The teaser that I'm gonna give is I've had so much fun with the combat. Combat is really fun, and also I'm wearing a gigantic helmet ball machine head on 2B's body, and it's really funny to see her walking around with this gigantic ball on her head, and that's what I've been enjoying with my time in Nier Automata.
All right, so that's the next game, Nier Automata. If you haven't already, join the book club, join the Discord. We're going to be talking about the game as we play it. We'll get your viewer questions. Definitely hit the link in the description for all of those links to our socials, including that Discord. Like the video, subscribe to the video if you want to join the club.
Who should they tell to join the club, Benny?
Oh man, maybe like your tennis instructor you could tell to join the club.
Any
Somebody at the
coach, any
gym,
coach. Oh, gym
any
coach,
coach for sure.
any coach.
Someone at the gym, if you're waiting your turn for like a machine at the gym, you can tell the person to join the book club. Tell your spouse about the book club. Why not? I mean, they might be interested. You can tell, you know, your waiter or waitress at a restaurant, they might want to join the club.
Don't forget about the
Tell
bus
everyone,
boys
bro.
too. You know, the bus
Don't forget about the
peoples.
busboys. That's right. Tip your waitress. Tip your
That's
waiters
true.
and
Also do
waitresses.
that. Do that. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Video Game Book Club. We enjoy making these videos so much. You have no idea. This is our sixth game that we've played. Half a year of games. It's kind of incredible, Benny. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all the viewers. Thank you for sticking around. And like Benny said, don't be afraid to join the book club. We are just a bunch of fun, happy dudes wanting to play video games together. That's all we are. So let's do it, man.
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.